Good afternoon, everyone. I am Dr. Jeremiah Eagen, a son of the honoree. And I want to thank all of you for taking the time to come today to honor my late father, Mr. Chief Justice, as a citizen of Lackawanna County. It's indeed an honor for the Eagen and Foley families to have this additional opportunity to remember and celebrate the wonderful life of our father, grandfather, great-grandfather, and now great-great-grandfather. It is also fitting that this ceremony is taking place on National Law Week. We're going to begin the program with an invocation to be delivered by Msgr. Joseph G. Quinn. I have to say G. Quinn, the pastor. We all know him, of course. He is the pastor currently of Our Lady of Snows and St. Benedict's Parish. Monsignor?
Thank you, Doctor, very much. It is a privilege, a delight, a joy to be joining all of you here today. And I have to laugh when he's emphasizing the G in Quinn, because I had an uncle who was Monsignor Joseph G. Quinn, and I've tried to explain this to someone that I was named after him. And this woman said, "They named you Monsignor?" Only in our valley. But it is a great joy for all of us to come and honor someone who should never be forgotten. A story that is amazing. The more you know of it, the more you put it in context, the more you think about just how he made his way through those 80 years of life. It's hard to believe that 36 years have passed since he passed on. That year, just a few months after his passing, there was a memorial service in Philadelphia in the Supreme Court courtroom in Philadelphia City Hall. And among the speakers there was the other iconic figure here in our community whose name is on the building across the street, Judge William J. Nealon, Sr. And I just want to use his words that he used that day that I think most of us can relate to in terms of our life in this corner of God's world. Judge Nealon, then the Chief Judge of the U.S. District Court for the Middle District of Pennsylvania, said, "When I was a young man, the name Michael Eagen was a household word in Lackawanna County. His popularity knew no bounds. Everyone, regardless of party or position, respected and truly adored him." Think of that. Here we are 36 years later, because we do respect his story, respect his journey, respect the lessons that were learned through the course of his life. So as we honor his memory now, let's all bow our heads and unite our hearts in prayer. And I'd like to invoke the words of the famous St. Thomas More, who was the patron saint of lawyers, a statesman of genuine justice and integrity in the story of his life. St. Thomas's words and ideals were fully lived out by the renowned Chief Justice Michael Eagen throughout each and every chapter of his life. And so we pray. O Lord, we pray for the greater glory of God and in the pursuit of God's justice, that we may all prove to be trustworthy in confidence, tireless in learning the true lessons of life, accurate in analysis, correct in conclusions, loyal to those we serve, honest with all, courteous to our adversaries, and ever attentive to our conscience. O Lord, you alone know that the one whom we honor today was always all of this and more. We humbly ask that the cherished memory of this esteemed servant leader continue to inspire and encourage all who serve the cause of true justice and lasting peace, to live lives of virtue and zeal, as did this good servant of yours, forever diligent in his duties in his life, so selflessly lived with and for others. May he know God's eternal peace and joy forever and ever. Amen.
Monsignor, thank you very much for those beautiful remarks. all who are able, I'd like to now rise for the national anthem to be performed by the Doug Smith Band. Are we ready, Chris? Early so proudly we at the twilight's last gleaming, whose sunshines and bright stars through the perilous night o'er the ramparts we watched, where so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare of a bursting in gave through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, sailors and stars-spangled banner yet wave for the land of the free and the home of the brave. Okay. Please remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance to be led by my 5 grandchildren, Claire, Julia, Mark Jr., and Christina Ussai, and Audrey Eagen. Perhaps the 5 of you could get up here behind the podium or around the podium. Does that sound good, gang?
Yep.
Go ahead. Somebody's got to get to the podium.
You ready? All right.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please be seated, everyone. Please be seated, everyone. Thank you very much, grandchildren. So anyway, okay. I want to thank the county commissioners, Jerry Notariani, Chris Chermak, and Debbie Dominic for selecting my father to be part of this monument row and for hosting today's event. I would like to ask County Commissioner Chermak to step up to the podium to offer words of welcome.
Thank you, everybody, and good morning. Welcome, family and friends. And even though it says in your pamphlet, Jerry Notariani, you can tell I don't have red hair, so I'm not Jerry. Early this morning, he I think got a call from the president, so he's on special assignment today. We have a proclamation, which is on display, what you will see at the luncheon. I'm not going to read the whole thing to you today, but I want to be here. I want to represent the county commissioners. We have a beautiful day today on our beautiful courthouse square. And as you read the proclamation later, I just want you to really take a good look at what a great person this was. And it's an honor to be here to represent today. But I would like to proclaim just today in Lackawanna County, Justice Michael J. Eagen Day. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Commissioner Chermak. Thank you. Thank you very much, Commissioner Chermak. I now want to acknowledge some of our guests. The Honorable President Judge Trish Corbick of the Court of Common Pleas of Lackawanna County, who will make remarks later in the program, and the other Honorable Judges of the Court of Common Pleas who are here today. I think they include Judge Mike Baris, Judge Mary Walsh Dempsey, Judge Julia Munley, whom I spoke with already, Judge Terrence Nealon, Judge Robert Mazzoni. Are there any others here that I have overlooked? Thank you very much for coming today. Obviously, you're peers of my father, and I appreciate your attendance at this event. We also want to recognize the mayor. Where's the mayor? Is she here? Hi, Mayor Paige Pagdetti, who's going to make remarks at the Catlin House reception. Thank you very much for coming. It's now my pleasure today to introduce our next speaker, Attorney John Mascelli. He's a graduate of Columbus University School of Law at Catholic University of America. He's a former law clerk of my father. He's a practicing attorney in Lackawanna County for some 48 years, I think. And is that right? John and I have been around a long time. And of course, he is president of the Lackawanna County Bar Association. And so it is a great pleasure to have John give us remarks both from his perspective as president of the bar as well as a former law clerk of my father. John?
Thank you, Jerry. Paperwork. Let me see. Good afternoon. It's an honor and a privilege as the president of the Lackawanna Bar Association to speak today about some of Justice Eagen's significant contributions to Pennsylvania jurisprudence, which includes restructuring the Pennsylvania appellate court system, born of an unwavering commitment to justice and equality. I do so from the fortunate perspective of having the honor of clerking for Justice Eagen during his tenure on the Pennsylvania Supreme Court, leading to his ascension to Chief Justice. And I know I speak for all 34 law clerks in recognizing what a transformable experience it was that we still cherish today. I recently read Socrates describe the essential elements of a good judge to be as follows. Quote, 4 things belong to a judge. They are to hear courteously, to answer wisely, to consider soberly, and to decide impartially. Justice Eagen met all the elements and then some, because he also had compassion and an incomparable judicial temperament. As to it, I never heard Justice Eagen raise his voice to a non-lawyer or lawyer. And I still recall with a smile how he handled an oral argument in Pittsburgh. A young criminal defense attorney was arguing an appeal from a conviction of murder in the 2nd degree. He was petrified and could hardly speak. It was painful to watch. Still, he tried to muscle his way through the oral argument. Justice Eagen then spoke up. He did not cajole or talk down to the young attorney. Rather, in a calm, mentoring voice, acknowledged how difficult it could be to argue a case before the Pennsylvania Supreme Court. He also assured the young attorney he knew more about the case than the justices did, and asked if he could help them better understand the issues. This is extraordinary. Some judges may have ridiculed the attorney and complained he was wasting their time. That was not Justice Eagen. As always, his judicial temperament was calm and respectful, and it produced a desired result. It caused the young attorney to compose himself, and he went on to give a very competent oral argument. To me, Justice Eagen's conduct demonstrated profound humility empathy and compassion, and my respect for him grew exponentially. Justice Eagen likewise understood how important it is in the law to have a level playing field. It was a beacon in his opinions. This is exemplified by multiple opinions, but since I handled many workers' compensation cases, I want to highlight one in particular, Commonwealth versus Thomas. Decided in 1971, it stands for the proposition an expert medical witness may express opinion testimony on medical matters based in part upon reports of others which are not in evidence, which the expert customarily relies upon in the practice of his or her profession. It arose in the context of the admission into the record of the results of psychological testing that was objected to as hearsay in an appeal from a criminal conviction. At the time, the law in Pennsylvania was, an expert may not state a conclusion which is based upon evidence not in the record. Justice Eagen, in his opinion, went on to state that, and I quote, several jurisdictions influenced by teaching of highly regarded legal commentators have recognized an exception to this rule and have permitted medical witnesses to express opinion testimony on medical matters based in part upon reports of others which are not in evidence, but which the expert customarily relies upon in the practice of his profession. He also cited Professor Wigmore and concluded, quote, it appears to us the foregoing limited exception is wise and salutatory, hence we adopt it as the law in Pennsylvania. This was a groundbreaking opinion, and it took on wings with the Commonwealth Court issuing opinions establishing the evidence rule of Commonwealth versus Thomas applies in compensation proceedings. This evidentiary rule is still cited today by attorneys throughout the Commonwealth, and it has helped immensely to level the playing field between claimants and insurance companies by making it easier, that is, less costly, for claimants to medically prove their case. It is truly a judicial gift by Justice Eagen that keeps on giving 50 years plus later. Besides changing the structure of the Pennsylvania appellate judiciary, gracing the bench with his judicial demeanor, and writing significant appellate opinions, Justice Eagen was also a stalwart when it came to ethics. I still remember that when he interviewed me for a clerkship, excuse me, he posed 3 challenging hypothetical questions, all dealing with ethics. From them, I learned how important it is for an attorney to always conduct his or herself in an ethical fashion. That candor before the court is paramount. Many wonderful things will be said today about Justice Eagen today, and all of them are well-deserved. Thus, today it's only appropriate to acknowledge, as citizens of Lackawanna County, and in particular, as members of the Lackawanna Bar Association, that we are blessed with his legacy of judicial scholarship, integrity, and temperament that is still a lodestar 50 years later. Quite an accomplishment. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Oops. I'll get there. John, thank you very much for your well-composed remarks and beautiful comments, particularly the statement that my father was a good judge. What better appellation could be said? Thank you again, John. It is now my privilege to introduce Attorney Michael McDonald the newly elected president of the Pennsylvania Bar Association. Mike is a graduate of Penn State Dickinson Law School in 1979. He has practiced here in Scranton for, I believe, 44 to 45 years. He's held many governance positions with both the Lackawanna and state bar associations. He is a past president of the Lackawanna County Bar Association, and he is the newly elected president of the Pennsylvania Bar Association. In addition, his wife, Mary Ann, Dr. Mary Ann, is a colleague of mine, and she's working today, right? Mike, it's a pleasure to have you with us.
Thank you, Jerry. You know, I think Lady Justice is looking down on us today, and Michael J. Eagen, and smiling because we have such great weather. President Judge Corbett, distinguished judges of the Court of Common Pleas of Lackawanna County and the federal bench, friends of Michael J. Eagen, family of Michael J. Eagen, and friends all, on behalf of the 22,000 lawyers and judges of the Pennsylvania Bar Association, it's my distinct honor and privilege to bring you greetings and congratulations on Michael J. Eagen's recognition as a distinguished citizen in Lackawanna County. I also bring you the greetings and well wishes of someone else. And that someone else asked me, no, ordered me to say that. Madam Chief Justice Deborah Todd, of the Chief Justice of the Pennsylvania Supreme Court, says greetings and congratulations today. She cannot be here, but she wants everyone to know that how important Chief Justice Michael J. Eagen was to the administration of justice and the justice system in Pennsylvania. Now, the Pennsylvania Bar Association had a long and storied history with Michael J. Eagen. I won't go into it, but I can tell you before this event, I checked the journals and the archives, and it was reading an admiration society for Michael J. Eagen. His jurisprudence, his dedication to the profession, his dedication to lawyers was unsurpassed. And one of the highlights of the Pennsylvania Bar Association occurred on February 25th, 1977, when a Lackawanna County lawyer, the last president of the Pennsylvania Bar Association, Joseph Gallagher, was a speaker for Michael J. Eagen when he became Chief Justice of the Pennsylvania Supreme Court. So I want to say thank you on behalf of the Pennsylvania Bar Association for a wonderful, wonderful jurist who makes us all proud. I do want to say two things, though, and that is, as Msgr. Quinn indicated what Judge Nealon has said. He said Judge Nealon indicated he was universally admired and respected, and a household word. I want to tell you that household word has a particular significance to me, because when I was a young boy and I was sitting at the kitchen table, my father, Joseph McDonald, would tell about his long friendship with Michael J. Eagen. And he would tell about they were both aspiring young lawyers who were working as clerks in an attorney's office. They had not gone to law school. They needed to take a cram course. My father and Michael J. Eagen drove down to Philadelphia each day to take a cram course and to pass the Pennsylvania Bar Association, to pass the bar exam. Fortunately, they did pass, and it was the best $100 that the citizens of the Pennsylvania ever had. You know, it's really interesting when you think of things, because fast forward to recently, I asked another lawyer, I said, one word, what do you think of Michael J. Eagen? And he thought, and he said, the word is more. And I said, more? That doesn't sound, I've never heard the word more. And he said, think of it. He was an intellectual giant of the courts, but he was more than that. He was a trailblazer for our citizens and for politicians and lawyers alike, but he was more than that. He was a charismatic leader who was beloved by the people, but he was more than that. He was more like everybody's hero. And I said, everybody's hero. Isn't that interesting? And we're here today, and we look at Michael J. Egan's legacy in the law, in our society, and we say we have warmest feelings for him. And our hearts are etched with his love. And that everyday hero we think about today. But it is so fitting and proper and just that today that incredible life will be etched forever here at the courthouse. It will be etched forever so that his life will be transformed into an inspiring legacy, into a living inspiration for the people in Lackawanna County, for generations to come, and for so many more, forevermore. Thank you very much.
Mike, spectacular. Thank you very much for your wonderful insights into my father's legacy. I'm amazed at some of the comments that you said today, which I was not aware of. Thank you very much. Now we're going to have the unveiling of the monument. My brother-in-law, Attorney Tom Foley Jr., is going to supervise the unveiling.
Supervises.
Right? Or do it. Well, I thought you might invite others up. Very good. Tom was married to my sister, Helen Marie. They have 5 boys and many grandchildren. And of course, Helen Marie, of course, is deceased, and Tom is remarried to attorney Jill Miller. Here, one more, Tom. Cut that one. Very good. Excellent. So we can also read the appellations here. Tom is going to make remarks soon. At this time, I want to acknowledge the former law clerks of my father who are present here today, or their widows. Mrs. Kay Barrett, she is the widow of the late attorney Paul Barrett, my father's first law clerk on the Supreme Court in 1960. That's a long time ago, and Kay is still on the move. I believe she was accompanied by her son and daughter-in-law, attorneys Matt and Lori Barrett. Is that correct? Thank you very much for coming, Kay. John McLean. Where's John? John McLean was my father's law clerk in 1976, and he was my father's administrative assistant for 4 years thereafter during my father's tenure as Chief Justice. John, thank you very much for coming today. And his wife Jane is here with him too. And brother-in-law Jim Early, who knows the history, the liturgical history, I guess, the church history of the county. We also have others here today. Justin Blewett. Thank you very much. Okay, Mike Cowley. Of course, Tom Foley Jr. Malcolm Gross and his wife Janet, who came from Allentown today, right? They worked in the 1960s with my father. And of course, John Mascelli, of course, whom you already heard from. Nicholas Mattice is here, right? I thought he was going to be here. And Arthur Rinaldi. And David Rinaldi. Have I failed to acknowledge any of my father's former law clerks? No, I guess we have everybody. Thank you all very much for coming and for having been my father's law clerks. I also want to mention Dr. Kathleen Mumley. And Judge Mumley and I talked about this before the ceremony. And of course, you know, Judge James Mumley, okay, as well. Dr. Kathleen Mumley, of course, is the widow of the late Judge James Mumley and the mother of the Honorable Judge Julie Mumley. And Dr. Munley, right? Dr. Munley, she had a PhD, and I had multiple communications before the ceremony. And Kathleen shared many stories about the history of this county with me in preparation for today's ceremony. And more importantly, she presented me with a 478-page tome, a dissertation written by your mother entitled A Study of the Democratic Party in Lackawanna County, 1920 to 1950, from minority to majority, right? And of course, my father had been interviewed by Dr. Kathleen Munley in preparation for that dissertation. And of course, as you heard today, my father was an important part of that history. It doesn't say here, but if we look at the monument, my father was born on May 9th, 1907. Believe that? 116 years ago, right? And he entered politics at the young age of 26, right? In 1933, when he announced his intention to run for Lackawanna County District Attorney on the Democratic ticket. However, the Democratic Party chairman at that time, Hugh Brady, had other plans and had intended to nominate a more senior and more mature attorney to run against the Republican opponent. Apparently, none were forthcoming, I guess because the Republicans at that time dominated all county elections in Lackawanna County. And so, on the final day of filing petitions to become a candidate in the primary election, Hugh Brady, apparently at the last 10 minutes, your mother told me, approved of my father's candidacy. Obviously, my father went on to win, and the rest is history, right? My father then, as it says here, worked in this courthouse for 47 years. First as district attorney for 8 years, from 1934 to 1941. Then as a judge of the Court of Common Pleas for 18 years, from 1942 through 1959. And then he had offices here in this courthouse over a span of 21 years, from 1960 through 1980, as an associate justice and then chief justice of the Pennsylvania Supreme Court. So you know my father loved this courthouse and loved to work here, obviously. And he retired when his term expired in 1980, and he had a good 7 years of retirement, but then he died on July 7th, 1987, at the age of 80. And as Monsignor said, it is now 36 years later that we are honoring my father today. But I'll tell you something else my father would have wanted me to say today, and that is that there were other important judges of his time that were members of the Democratic movement in the county. And I would like to mention their names. Some of them have already been mentioned. Of course, Terry and Terry's father and grandfather, the Honorable William J. Nealon, was my father's state Democratic campaign manager in 1959 when he ran successfully for the Supreme Court. That was the year that Terry was born, right? Of course, I won't tell you how much older than I am, but that was the year I got my driver's license. Obviously, Judge William Nealon went on to become a judge of the Court of Common Pleas in 1960 to actually succeed my father, and then became a judge of the U.S. District Court of the Middle District in 1962, and became president judge there. And of course, Terry, how many years did your father serve? Until 2018. He was the longest serving U.S. District Judge in the history of the country. Correct? I mean, Terry shares texts with me periodically about these events with very interesting photographs, right? Then I don't know if anybody's here representing the Conboys. I thought Dr. Conboy would be here. Straight back. Oh, there's Dr. Pat Conboy, my colleague. His father, the Honorable Richard P. Conboy, was another leader of the Democratic Party. I believe your family came from Manuka, correct? And as I said to Judge Trish before this meeting, Everybody's either from Manuka or wants to have been from Manuka, correct? But anyway, his father, Richard P. Conaboy, was a leader of the Democratic Party, and then he became a long-standing judge of the Court of Common Pleas, and then a long-standing judge of the U.S. District Court of the Middle District of Pennsylvania. And Pat, how many years did your father serve as a judge? Do you remember? It was over 50. I can't count that high. Right, so it was more than 50 years. And then, of course, we had Judge James Munley, who also served as a judge of the Court of Common Pleas, and then as a judge of the U.S. District Court of the Middle District. And so I would say, like my father, Nealon, Conaboy, Munley, and of course, Judge James Brady and Judge T. Linus Hoban were giants of the legal community in their time, and it was spanned a period of over 90 years. And so, as was alluded to by Mike, we must remember our local history, in part represented here today on these memorials, and all those important judges and other legal scholars who preceded us, right, Pat and Terry? Now it is my great pleasure to introduce another Manukan, the Honorable President Judge Trish Corbett. She is a graduate of Widener University, Delaware Law School, 1988. Judge Corbett has received numerous honors and awards and recognitions. She is the first woman elected to the Lackawanna Court of Common Pleas. She joined the bench in 1998. She became president judge in January 2021. She was born in the Manuka section of Scranton to Macon, right? Macon and Dorothy Corbett. And she still lives in the Manuka section of Scranton and is married to Mike Breyer. She has 2 adult children. It is an honor and a privilege to have Judge Corbett here today to give us some remarks. Judge?
Thank you all very, very much. All I would first like to say that's probably the Chief Justice now telling me to wrap it up, but the first thing I would like to say is that it took a guy from Manuka to balance out this wall, because we had the legislative branch represented through Judge Munley's mother, Marion Munley, and through my former boss, Joseph McDade, and we had the executive branch represented by Governors Casey and Scranton, and today we will have the judicial branch of government. So finally, the 3 branches of government will be part of this memorial. I would first like to congratulate the Eagen and Foley family on the dedication of the monument of Chief Justice Michael Eagen. This moment will stand as a great reminder of the countless triumphs that have been said before and will be said after me, that have been accomplished not only for Lackawanna County, but for the entirety of the Pennsylvania judicial system. While I never personally had the opportunity to work with Justice Eagen, I have had the opportunity to see his legacy carry on through his children, grandchildren, and now his great-grandchild, Tara, who happens to be my law clerk, and she is outstanding. She wrote that in here for me. And I was afraid, and she looked right at me when Msgr. Quinn started to talk, because you know he can be a hog and he steals everybody's lines. And he said he wanted to quote Judge Nealon, and she looked at me and I looked at her like, oh no, there goes my speech. But it wasn't the same. But I would like to quote a good friend and colleague of Justice Eagen, the words of the late Judge William Nealon. And he stated in his memorial address, in addition to the comments stated previously, there is no institution, charity, or other worthwhile cause in Lackawanna County that does not bear the stamp of his leadership and his example. Henry Wadsworth Longfellow wrote a song of life, that we can make our lives sublime, and departing, leave behind footprints on the sands of time. Justice Eagen has indeed left his footprints large and deep on the sands of time. Justice Eagen's contributions to the court, this court, Lackawanna County, and the entire judiciary in dedication to justice will be continued and gratefully recognized and memorialized by the bench of bar alike. Congratulations again to the Foley and Eagen families. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Judge. Thank you very much, Judge Corbett. We have 14 attorneys in the Eagen and Foley family who are living. And my daughter Catherine, my daughter-in-law over there, and Tiffany and I are the three doctors in the family, right? But anyway, it is now my pleasure to again introduce Attorney Thomas J. Foley, my brother-in-law, for his to share his thoughts about today.
Judge Corbett, other judges, and friends and family members of Chief Justice Eagen that are here today. You know, after listening to Jerry and some of the other speakers, it took all my things that I was going to say. I'm going to make this short then. But I want to talk to you, tell you a few things. We're going to have two next speakers. We're going to talk about some of Chief Justice's history and legal accomplishments and civic institutions he supported. But I'd really like to just briefly talk about some of his attributes as Chief Justice and as a person who I admired both as a father-in-law and as a jurist and fellow member of the bar. Although Chief Justice Eagen attained the highest legal position of Pennsylvania in law that a lawyer can achieve, but he never forgot that he was born in the borough of German, and that is throughout the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania's travels, he let people know that he was a person from Scranton, like he was like Joe Biden. He'd tell people he was from Scranton, he was proud of it. When he was elected to the Supreme Court in 1959, he made it a point to select the newly graduated lawyers from this area to serve as his law clerks in order to give them an opportunity to enhance their legal experience, which often resulted in the foundation of them achieving and very successful careers. There's too many, in fact, to name. The numbers has already been told to you. But I'll make an exception that those who did are late Judge Munley, Jim Munley, late Charlie Gibbons, who had a national reputation and practice in Pittsburgh, and of course Mal Gross from Allentown, who is here with us today. This long list of law clerks started with my friend, the late Attorney Paul Barrett, has been named to you, and ended with my former partner and friend, John McLean. Another thing that Justice Neal did, although the installation ceremony of the Chief Justice is normally held in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania courtroom in Philadelphia, but Justice Eagen insisted that it be held in Scranton before his neighbors and supporters and friends who had supported him throughout his entire career, and to be held also at the University of Scranton, from which he graduated. All of the members of the Supreme Court participated in this installation, which was witnessed by a crowd of over 700 people. It was quite a celebration. Justice Eagen's engaging personality, which has already been mentioned here, and his calm manner during his 21 years, getting a little windy here, so I'll ad-lib it, was very engaging and allowed him to develop great, close, and lasting friendships, starting with Chief Justice, the late Chief Justice Ben Jones of Lackawanna County, and occurred throughout his 21 years in the court. These friendships and his ability to work with people made him a force on this court. He, in fact, over the years became the conciliator in the judges when they got into arguments over decisions that were being occurred. Because of his manner and patience, he was very effective, in fact, in changing votes on the final opinions with the court. I'm not going to go into a lot of stories about what occurred, but I will state one example and then conclude. Justice Eagen develops, as I mentioned, a very close relationship with the court. And one of the pet projects that he had in mind, and it's been mentioned by John Mascelli, was the changing of the antiquated makeup of the Pennsylvania appellate courts, in particular the Superior Court and the Commonwealth Court. And he made it his job to change that lineup, in which was there were 7 judges on the Commonwealth Court and 7 judges on the Superior Court. He fought for that legislation and enlisted the aid and help of his fellow jurists, in particular to Justice Roberts, who succeeded him as Chief Justice. Normally, justices, when they retire, especially the Chief Justices, they get tired. They don't want to hear any more internal arguments and political leanings. Just walk away from it. But in the case of Chief Justice Roberts, who was succeeding him, he asked Mike Eagen, as a personal favor, to come to his inauguration or installation as Chief Justice in his Justice Roberts' hometown, Erie. Although he was a little tired after all of the battles in the court, he agreed to do so. And myself and my then wife, Helen Marie, were also invited. We knew the Chief Justice, and we were invited. The day of the installation, we went to the airport, And the charter flight that we were expecting wasn't there. Chief Justice got a call telling him that there had been a mix-up and that the plane was going to be late and that we would probably miss the installation. At that time, Chief Justice picked up the phone and called Justice Roberts and said that he wouldn't be able to make it. Justice Roberts then asked him again as a special favor to come, and he said that he would. Even though he knew that the ceremony was going to be delayed from 45 to 50 minutes. Justice Roberts then arranged for a car and a driver when we arrived at the airport in Erie to drive us to the site of the installation with the state police escort with sirens blaring, and we got to the site. At that point, the ceremony started proceeding. Following that, at the celebration, Chief Justice Roberts thanked the Chief Justice for coming to the ceremony, even though it's not it's very unusual that the Chief Justice would do so, former Chief Justice. And he and Mrs. Roberts expressed their great gratitude of coming. I learned at that time a lesson that when someone gives you a favor, in this case, Chief Justice Roberts fought with Chief Justice Eagen to pass the legislation in the legislature, Pennsylvania, to change the antiquated legal system that we had in Pennsylvania, where you would have all 7 justices of the Superior Court and the Commonwealth Court sit in each of the oral arguments. This law was changed, and Justice Eagen went to the installation as a payment for the support and the effort that Justice Roberts put into working with him and getting the legislation passed. With that argument and information, I will cease. I'll tell you, I've been retired now since January, and I got used to the leisure life. I'm not dressing in coat and tie, not worrying about the office, and I think it shows today. I think it's a good thing I'm retired. 60-plus years is enough. But our next 2 speakers I'd like to introduce. First is Attorney Richardson Todd Eagen. He's a graduate of Dickinson School of Law. I believe it was in 1996. He's a member of the law firm of Welby, Ken and Bob. The name is the last thing here. My papers are list up. And he is married to Mary Gene Eagen, and is who is the assistant superintendent of the Tobyhanna School District. And he is the proud father of two beautiful and talented, very talented daughters. Todd Eagen.
Let me first thank everybody for coming today. There's just too many family and friends here to name everybody by name, but it really truly is an honor to have Chief Justice Michael J. Eagen added as a Lackawanna County Distinguished Citizen. I certainly cannot express all of the accomplishments of Mike Eagen because they are too numerous. However, when I hit the highlights, I think you'll get a good understanding of the significant impact that Mike Eagen had on the legal system here in Pennsylvania. He started his career after 1 year of Harvard Law School at the Powell Law Firm, and he was clerking for his good friend Jim Powell. He had to leave Harvard because, quite frankly, he couldn't afford it. He had to come back and help the family out. He was fortunate to clerk for Attorney Powell, and then in 1931, he took the bar exam and passed the bar exam. After that, he formed the law firm of Powell and Eagen, and they were up and running for 2 whole years. It was in 1933, at age 26, he was elected the youngest district attorney in Lackawanna County history. Now, his start as district attorney wasn't quite easy. After he won the election, a voter from Archibald, I'm not sure if he was part of the Munley family or not, but a voter from Archibald files a lawsuit saying that the election was stolen. This is 1933. Well, the voter maintained that there was palpable fraud not apparent on the face of the returns. That sounds familiar. Well, thankfully, the Lackawanna County Court of Common Pleas and later the Pennsylvania Supreme Court rejected that lawsuit, and we're here today to honor his public service from 1933 forward. He served as Lackawanna County District Attorney until 1941, when he was elected judge of the Court of Common Pleas. He served in that position with distinction for 18 years. And in 1959, Mike Eagen ran for Supreme Court, and he was elected at that time to a 21-year term. At the swearing-in ceremony, it was January 2nd of 1960 in Philadelphia. Lackawanna County President Judge Otto Robinson predicted that Mike Eagen's, quote, qualifications will serve the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania with distinction and honor. So as we gather here today, I can say without hesitation that Judge Robinson was right. Distinction and honor were the hallmarks of Mike Eagen's legal career. He served as justice on the Supreme Court from 1960 until 1977. In 1977, at the University of Scranton, he was sworn in as Chief Justice, where he served until his retirement on September 23rd of 1980. Now, when he was sworn in as Chief Justice, he was just shy of 70. He had about 3 or 4 years left on his term. Now, most people would enjoy the fruits of being Chief Justice and kind of kick back a little bit, not Mike Eagen. He recognized at the time that there was an exceedingly heavy volume of appeals in the system. His former law clerk, Paul Barrett, said that the justice used to say, "This is a new ball game, Paul." Litigation had increased greatly, and Justice Eagen, Chief Justice Eagen at the time, knew it. He knew and truly understood that justice delayed is justice denied. So what did he embark on? Well, he had earlier on in the 60s, during the Constitutional Convention of 1968, lobbied for the creation of the Commonwealth Court, and it was created. It started in 1970, and the Commonwealth Court hears all administrative appeals from state agencies, from local agencies. He also lobbied for the creation of the Superior Court in 1968, but his efforts failed. But when he became Chief Justice, he saw an opportunity to revamp the judicial system in Pennsylvania, and he did. So in addition to the Commonwealth Court being created, he issued special orders mandating that the Superior Court sit in panels of 3 judges rather than 7 judges. He appointed senior judges from across the Commonwealth, retired judges, to sit on these panels to hear the cases. He was attacking the heavy volume so that justice could be served. He not only appointed the senior judges, he then went on a lobbying effort in Harrisburg. He appeared at committee meetings, at the Senate, at the House, and he lobbied for the change in the Superior Court. And today we have 15 judges on the Superior Court rather than 7, and that was due to Chief Justice Egan's efforts at that time. He also recognized that at the time there was 165 homicide appeals pending in the Supreme Court. Now again, justice delayed is justice denied. He took that homicide docket, he assigned that to panels of 3 judges, and in one summer, he cleared the homicide docket of the Pennsylvania Supreme Court. He also made a significant change to the Supreme Court of Pennsylvania. When he took office in 1977, the court heard every case on appeal. He had that changed, that it was a court that you would hear the appeals by permission only, similar to the United States Supreme Court. Now, his tenure on the court and as Chief Justice certainly transformed the entire appellate system, and he also successfully lobbied that in front of the legislature. Today, the court system that we have today is the same that he left the structure. The fact that the appellate system Mike Eagen transformed is still in place 43 years later is a testament to him, and that's why we're here today. At the portrait hanging ceremony in Philadelphia in 1987 at the Supreme Court room, then Chief Justice Nix stated about Mike Eagen, he said, "He was a great man, a man for the ages, but a man who to all of us in this room was a friend." Federal Judge William J. Nealing that same day stated, "I knew Mike Eagen not only as an intellectual giant as described by Chief Justice Egan, but at the same time as a gentle, decent, and loving human being, a man absolutely without gall or pretense." Now, I knew Mike Eagen as my grandfather, the lovable guy that lived around the corner that I would go and get candy from. So I simply knew Mike Eagen as Gramps, but I think I knew Mike Eagen like most people here today. We didn't know him as the district attorney, as the judge, as the justice, or the Chief Justice. We simply knew him as Gramps, or as Dad, or just plain Mike. So I thank everybody for being here today, and I say thank you, Gramps, for your service.
At this time, I have the pleasure of introducing my granddaughter, Tara Foley, as the next speaker. Tara is a 2020 graduate from Widener University Commonwealth Law School. She's serving as the acting law clerk for President Judge, Trish Corbett. And she's the daughter of attorney Kevin Foley, who unfortunately, because of the change in dates of the installation today, or of the this award, the Chief Justice, that he has signed up for a trip to Israel, where he's going to be visiting all of the religious spots in Israel. And in fact, he was the one who was supposed to make the presentation today. I was a last-minute substitution here. So, but anyway, Tara.
Good afternoon. My name is Tara Foley, and I have the privilege to speak about the community service and honors of my great-grandfather. Chief Justice Eagen was a spirited, public-minded citizen who served in leadership positions in a broad spectrum through the community, fraternal, and religious activities, for which he received countless awards far too numerous to name today. To set forth a few, he was honored by the Friendly Sons of St. Patrick for outstanding community service. He was inducted into the Equestrian Order of Holy Sepulchre by Jerusalem by Francis Cardinal Spellman. Every year, the Lackawanna Bar Association awards the Chief Justice Michael J. Eagen Award to a person or an organization of the area which contributions to community development and improvement are considered to be outstanding, which my grandfather was the first recipient of. And most recently, the main courtroom of Lackawanna County's Courthouse was named for Justice Eagen. But I would be remorse to stand here today and not say that my grandfather truly did not do it for the awards or the accolades. Rather, he would have much rather shared a suite with an individual or a treat and speak about sports than talk about anything that he was doing. He was a humble man, someone that requested that the courts not hang his portrait until after his passing. He was embodied with the phrase, self-praise is no praise at all. As some of you here today, I never had the opportunity to meet my great-grandfather, but grew up hearing the stories of him. However, not many of the stories consisted of what happened with him in the courtroom. They focused on his sense of family and how being kind to others gets you much further in life. As we've heard, his career began in an unconventional way, of withdrawing from a well-renowned Ivy League school and returning to Scranton. Placing his own aspirations on hold, he ensured his family was secured before returning to his own dreams. His hard work to accomplish his goals never went unnoticed, though, by this community or those that he met along the journey. One story which was shared with me during my preparation for this speech was how my great-grandfather would stop at local churches while on the campaign trail, as churches were about the only thing open 24/7 at the time. He would stop in, he would chat with the local nuns, he would say a prayer, and he'd get back on the road to his next campaign destination. Before my gramps knew it, all the nuns he had stopped and spoke with were writing letters of his support in their areas for him. It was commonly said, once you know my great-grandfather, you have a friend in Scranton. Many saw throughout his life the potential he could accomplish through his hard work, dedication to service, and good character, which ultimately led to their support of him. My great-grandfather had the same ability to see the potential in others as they saw in him. He was willing to give those that needed help within the community, or he was willing to provide you the extra push that you may have needed to see your potential. I hope this monument reminds our community of the potential to help others and the push you may need to get to where your destination is. Thank you.
Thank you very much, family members, Tom, Todd, Tara, for your personal and professional knowledge, which led to excellent remarks about my father. The program's coming to an end, gang. We don't want to exceed more than much of an hour. But anyway, now, one final thing. We have Colleen Garrity come forward to discuss proclamations, right, Colleen? Got to pull this out.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for coming. Thank you for the story, Tara, which my dad, Mike Eagen, would tell me all about the campaign stories, and that was one of his stories when Gramps would stop in the churches, and he made friends with all the nuns who wrote letters across the stage for him. But I'm here, and honored to be here, to present a certificate to my Uncle Jerry and family, on behalf of Congressman Matt Cartwright, my boss. But I'd also like to invite Representative from Marty Flynn's office, Brian Doughton. State Rep, I know Kyle Donahue, where's he hiding now? I saw him. And State Rep Kyle Mullins. And I think Bridget could not make it today, and I don't think I see a representative, but I'd also like to say and let you know that I got a text message from our Senator Bob Casey congratulating myself and all of the Eagen and Foley family. Even though he couldn't be there, he will have a certificate sent as well. I know the congressman and our senator are both busy working out in Washington for us. In fact, just one funny story. I spoke to the congressman yesterday about his weekend schedule because he works weekends too. And this morning when I woke up, I had a missed call from the congressman at 11:11 p.m. And I was like, what was he calling me at 11:11 p.m.? Then I noticed a message. I thought it was a pocket dial. So he says to me, Colleen, like I said earlier, I had a really good day today and a really good evening. But I forgot to say happy birthday to you. So it's very nice that your boss calls you at 11:11 before the day ends to say happy birthday. But it's really nice that my phone was turned off, so I wasn't awoken. So I have the certificate of special congressional recognition. I also have another one from my dad, Mike Eagen. The congressman gave us two, one for Jerry, Uncle Jerry, and one for my dad, Mike Eagen, who really would have loved to be here today. I know Julia Munley wanted to see him, but I'll be visiting him tomorrow, and I'll bring him this certificate from the congressman. Certificate of Special Congressional Recognition in honor of the late Michael J. Eagen, Chief Justice of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania's Supreme Court. Chief Justice Eagen will forever be remembered for his high degree of dedication and concern for all who serve the court system. His 49-year legacy was marked by courage, boldness, imagination, and innovation, and a fierce commitment to the administration of justice. Distinguished Citizens Memorial Dedication, Lackawanna County Courthouse, May 19th, 2023, U.S. Representative Matt Cartwright, Member of Congress, Pennsylvania's 8th Congressional District. And now Brian Doughton from Marty Flynn's office.
Thanks, Colleen. Good afternoon. Congratulations to the Eagen family and the Foley family. I do have a certificate of honor from Senator Marty Flynn, which is very lengthy and will be on display a little later. But I do have some brief words from Senator Flynn that he wanted me to read. A strong Commonwealth of Pennsylvania and a strong United States of America depend on good citizenship on the part of their inhabitants. Having displayed the admirable qualities of leadership and character and having lived by the principles that make our community a better place in which to live, and having earned the admiration of family and friends for this achievement, Chief Justice Michael J. Eagen has brought honor to the community. I recognize such patriotic service and extend appreciation for that service to our Commonwealth. Thank you.
Brian, thank you very much. Jeremiah Eagen. Thank you.
State Representative Kyle Donahue.
It's my pleasure today. Congratulations to the Eagen and Foley family. It's my pleasure today to present this citation that acknowledges Chief Justice Eagen's contributions to not only our county but also our Commonwealth. And I'm not going to read the whole thing, but it is signed by myself, my colleague Kyle Mullins, and my colleagues Bridget Kozorowski and Jim Haddock, who couldn't make it today. But congratulations to the Eagen and Foley family.
Thank you very much, Kyle. Donahue. Thank you much, Kyle Mullins. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for having us, and congratulations to the Eagen family. It's a little intimidating standing here as a non-lawyer lawmaker in front of a bunch of lawyers, especially as we're honoring a member of the Pennsylvania Supreme Court, the branch of government that from time to time gently reminds the legislature what we've screwed up and how long it's been happening. But it is not only his public service, but his sense of family and community and friendship and his legacy that is here and apparent today that we should all strive to in our daily lives, regardless of what our charge is. So it appears there's no more room up here, but that doesn't mean that you should all stop trying to emulate all of the wonderful things we heard about Chief Justice Eagen. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Kyle. Thank you very much, Colleen Garrity. Thank you very much, Kyle Donahue. Thank you very much, Brian Doughton. And thank you very much, Kyle Mullins. Thank you very much for all of these proclamations. Obviously, we're going to conclude the program now, but we all come away with different perspectives and takeaways, correct? And there's so many. I'm overwhelmed by the amount of information and praise that my father received today, to be honest with you. But in any event, I know 3 things that took away, and that is my father's tremendous commitment to this community. He was a hometown guy. My second perspective is my father's extraordinary active participation in community service. And I think Gary Drapek, who's here today, would attest to that. In fact, my father was very fond to have been the first president of the Lackawanna United Way from 1955 through 1958. And he was thereafter given an award, the Lackawanna United Fund Award for outstanding leadership in the creation of the fund and distinguished service as president. I think those words echo throughout today. Outstanding leadership, dedicated service. My third takeaway, of course, is what most of the lawyers here today had to say, and that is that my father had a noble mission as Chief Justice of Pennsylvania. And that noble mission, as they indicated, was to improve the administration of justice in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania in a significant, substantive, and transformative way. And I think, based on the remarks of our distinguished speakers here today, my father achieved that mission. So in closing, I want to thank all of you for coming today and spending time here listening and honoring my father. I want to thank Maureen McGuigan, Director. Maureen, are you here? Or did she go away on vacation? Oh, there you are. Maureen, there you are. Good. Maureen and Chris Calvey. Chris Calvey, for bringing this project to fruition and for arranging this ceremony. I also want to thank Marianne Savaconis, who provided great operational leadership and help in aspects of this ceremony, and of course arranged for the luncheon reception to follow at the Catlin House at the Lackawanna Historical Society, where we will hear from Mayor Gephardt and other family members about some additional things and stories about my father. I also want to thank Leanne Munley. Where's Leanne? She's on this side. Leanne Munley, there you are. Of course you were there. For her assistance in coordinating the Bar Association's participation in today's events. I was also told by Mary Ann I need to thank my family members who helped me along this journey, right? And that included Kevin Foley, Colleen Eagen Foley, Richard Fitzsimmons. And I must say, Richard Fitzsimmons did help me on this journey today with my impaired knee. I'm like, I guess, Joel Embiid from the 76ers, who was also wearing a knee brace for part of his games, right? But anyway, I'd like to say that all of these monuments here on Courthouse Square remind us of the importance of our local history, of the important contributions to society and the important achievements of all of the honorees here today. And of course, this monument here in honor of my father, right, is a wonderful tribute to my father, and the Eagen and Foley families are greatly pleased that this has happened some 36 years after his death. For those of you who are able to come, please join us at the Catlin House for some good food, good drink, and I guess some additional stories and proclamations there too. Posh is the caterer, so the food should be pretty good. Thank you very much, everyone, for coming. Okay, well done.
I could have your attention just for a few more minutes, we do have just a little bit more that we want to share with you today. My name is Marianne Savakinis. I'm the Executive Director of the Lackawanna Historical Society, and I'm very happy that you're all here today. And I want to thank Dr. Eagen for including the Historical Society in this fantastic celebration. And I also want to introduce you to our president, Michael Gilmartin, to say a few words of welcome.
Hi, good afternoon, everybody. I would like to welcome you to the Catlin House and to extend the celebration of the courthouse dedication for the Justice Eagen Memorial dedication today to the Catlin House for a little bit of an after party and to continue recognizing his distinguished community service. We do have some people who have some comments that they're going to share with us today, and we're going to begin with Scranton Mayor Paige Gebhardt Cognetti.
Thank you, Michael. It's great to see everyone. It's kind of a beautiful celebration. I do a proclamation. I think we have heard many, many times the amazing things that Justin Eagen did, so I won't read them again. But from my perspective, I just wanted to say, leading into today and thinking about this last night, what to say. Today is just such a tribute to our community and the way that we treat family, the way that we think about family. Family lasts for generations. You keep family memories in not just in your heart, but we make monuments. We talk about people. We have this incredible Lackawanna Historical Society where live the documents of the family members that have long passed but who still impact our lives. And it makes me emotional because I'm so proud to be a part of this community. I love to see the Eagens and the Foleys today and all the love that you have for each other now and to celebrate the love of Chief Justice Eagen. So congratulations formally from the city of Scranton and personally from me and my family.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mayor Cognetti. What we'd like to do next is there's a few people here who just wanted to share some of their personal memories of Chief Justice Eagen. So I think we're going to start with Annette Paludis. Is Annette here?
Good. I guess it's good afternoon. I'm delighted to be here with you. It was a wonderful ceremony, and I was reminded of this even before I came. Someone once said, not often does a man come along who stands above the crowd. And this man, of course, stood above the crowd. And all the things I heard about him today only reinforces me to how I knew him as a father. His daughter, Helen Marie, was one of my best friends. We started at Marywood Seminary together. And there were about 6 of us that were new. And then the rest of the people in the class had already been there for several years. But we always kind of stayed close together. But with them, they finally embraced us. Probably because when I was 16, my father and mother had never driven a car, and they bought a car for me to drive. And so I soon became very popular, as you probably realize. And that first summer, they allowed me to take the car down to visit Helen Marie at the beach. And another girl came with me, but she was visiting somebody else. And I didn't realize till after, but I think the judge was a complete nervous wreck. But he never displayed it. He acted as though everything was fine. And we traveled all over because I had never been to the beach. We went to Ocean City. We went to Spring Lake, was it? And because one of our friends was waiting on table there. And then the last place I wanted to go was Atlantic City. And that was a little distance from where we were. And I could see, the only thing I saw, the judge looked very worried, but he was very nice. He didn't say a nasty word. But we said we were going to Atlantic City. And he said, if you're not home by midnight, I'll be waiting on the causeway for you. And we drove up the driveway and he was coming out the door. So we got there in time. And they were much relieved, I believe, when I went home. Because, at that age, you didn't realize that he felt responsible for us. But his daughter and I were very good friends. And the thing I want people to know is how she was a very bright girl. She was a valedictorian of our class. And we had a wonderful relationship with her for many, many years. But the last thing I want to talk, two things I want to say about the judge, and all my friends will say this. Wherever we were, and we went to many gatherings for him when he was running for judge and all that, he always treated us like we were important adults. He would introduce us to everybody and ask every one of my friends from and that high school group, we're still friends. Joyce Welby is here and Caddy Clark. We were all friends for 70 years. And, but he really always treated us like royalty. And even later on, he came to events I ran for state representative in 1982. He was there and he said to me, you may not win this time, but don't consider it the end. Consider it a beginning. And that's he was always very, very gracious to us. And the last time I saw him was when my friend passed away, and I went to see his Helen Marie's aunts, and we always called them the girls. And I went to see the girls, and Loretta said to me, why don't you go down? Mike is by himself. And I went down to his house, and he was just overcome with grief. But again, he was very gracious. He treated me with the utmost civility, and we had a nice discussion, and that was the last time I had seen him. So I feel very privileged to have known his daughter and to have known him and to have known the family. They became like family to me, and I'm delighted that I could be here today with all of you. Thank you.
Thank you, Annette. I have to tell you, I never had the privilege of meeting Chief Justice Eagen, but in the years that we have been working on documenting his life and talking to people, and when we planned this event, we had so many phone calls with similar stories about the personal connections that Chief Justice made and how he made everyone, and I think Annette just said that, feel important. So I think that's a very special quality and also why this is so deserved today. Our next speaker is Richard Fitzsimmons.
Well, good afternoon, folks. Delighted to see everyone here for this wonderful day. I'm here to offer a few comments about Mr. Chief Justice Michael J. Eagen. Much more comfortably, Uncle Mike. I'm not going to be speaking about his legal career. We've heard about that earlier, and others who know it far better than I spoke to it rather eloquently, so enough said there for a wonderful career. But in 1935, Uncle Mike had the good fortune to marry Helen Fitzsimmons, my father's elder sister. And 2 years previous, his first break was to be elected DA here in Lackawanna County, as we have all heard. And then in 1941, when he became judge in Lackawanna County, he appointed my Aunt Helen's sister, Loretta Fitzsimmons, to be his secretary and his office administrator and gatekeeper. And if you don't believe that story of gatekeeper, ask any of the law clerks, okay? And they will fill you in about that detail. But what a lucky guy, okay? He was bookended by two Fitzsimmonses. How could he go wrong? Okay? Perfect setup. Enough about the Fitzsimmonses, because today is Mike Eagen's day. He was a very skilled district attorney, for sure. However, the real substance of my remarks center on his civic participation, working for the common good of the people. It was legendary. We've heard some of it earlier today. His non-legal community involvement ranged from being the chairman of the Bishop's House of Charity, late 1940s, which resulted in the construction of 4 Catholic youth centers: Scranton, Carbondale, Wilkes-Barre, and Hazleton. That was quite an achievement. It also funded many of the social welfare programs administered by the Catholic Diocese of Scranton. And then he continued with a myriad of other fine positions. Exalted ruler of the Elks, for instance, as a fundraiser for the United Jewish Appeal. One of the founders, the founder of the Lackawanna United Fund, LUF, L-U-F as it was called then, in today's world, the United Fund of Lackawanna and Wyoming, or Wayne counties. And then he was a supporter of the Welch's St. David's Society, a longtime chairman of the American Red Cross, a strong supporter of the Progressive Center, and of course, Sister Adrian's Friends of the Poor. So it goes on and on and on. I mentioned just those as a sample of community involvement for the common good, and I can't stress that enough. In the 1960s and the 1970s, when I was a student at the University of Pittsburgh, Uncle Mike would call me each year when court was sitting in Pittsburgh for a very, very busy week of court, okay? His schedule was packed. I knew that. But he would say to me, "Richard, let's get together for dinner." He had been hearing cases all day, reading briefs, writing opinions, on and on and on. But yet he had time to give me a call, never self-centered, okay? He would say, "I want to treat you and a friend to dinner. What's your schedule like? When can you come?" He never said, "The only night we can get together is Thursday or Tuesday." It was always about me. He wanted to know about my classwork, my academic career, my research. He didn't discuss anything about the legal world. I wouldn't have known what he was talking about anyhow. So that would not have mattered. And these meetings went on for the 5 years that I lived in Pittsburgh, and I treasured them. Now fast forward to the 1980s, okay? I decided to run for county commissioner in Wyoming County. I was only 39 years old. I had absolutely no political experience. We heard a lot about Manuka today. We heard a lot about Democrats today, Democratic Party. I'm going to Wyoming County. The registration is 8-1 Republican. I'm coming out of a lifetime of being born and reared in Scranton. Guess what? I was Irish, Catholic, and a Democrat. And I'm going to Wyoming County. And, you know, why start at the bottom? Just run for county commissioner. What the hell? You know, what do you have to lose? So I went to Uncle Mike. Who better to talk to? And we discussed any number of things. We discussed strategy, campaign style, methods, issues, timing. He mentored me so well that I was elected in that county first time out of the gate. Okay? But again, back to Uncle Mike, because it's his day. His life was a life well lived. We heard about that earlier today from every speaker. Evidence of that is the presence of so many people here today in this room and previously down at the courthouse to remember him and to honor him. In a fractious time in our country and in the world, a time of polarization and divisions based upon ideology or political positions or economic solutions, here we are today, united, okay, as a people of this community, regardless of any differences which we may have on any scale, we're here in one purpose, and that is to honor this good man. Adding his name to the Distinguished Citizens Memorial in Scranton brings luster to that memorial site. Truly brings luster to that memorial site in my mind. I clearly recall his humble and grateful comments in Philadelphia, 1960, when he was installed in the Supreme Court. He concluded his speech most meaningfully, saying, and I quote this exactly, "I do not expect to be a great justice, but I promise the citizens of Pennsylvania, and I promise every person at that installation in front of us, that with the grace of God, I will be a good justice of the Supreme Court." A good justice of the Supreme Court. And how many times today did we hear about him being a good man? It came through time and time again. Nothing is more important in describing my Uncle Mike. In conclusion, from being a Lackawanna County judge in 1942 to being Mr. Chief Justice in the 1980s, Mike Eagen was a man of power, with empathy, honesty, and fairness. For all of us. For me, Uncle Mike was a man of personal and positive influence. He has been irreplaceable in my life. Thank you.
Thank you, Richard. Our next speaker is Helen Murphy. Here's Helen.
Thank you. So, hi everyone. Again, thank you from the Eagen and Foley family for being here today. My name is Helen Marie Eagen Murphy. Can't remember my own name. Oh, speaking of, sorry. I'm Helen Marie Eagen Murphy. My father is Michael. My grandfather is also Michael. And Jerry asked me to say a few words about my grandfather. So as Todd ended his speech, my brother, he said he'll remember him as Gramps, and that's what I remember about my grandfather. We had the good fortune of living at 707 North Webster Avenue. My grandfather lived at 711 Taylor Avenue, and the Fitzsimmons lived at 746 North Webster Avenue. It was a nice little triangle for us. So we would all gather ourselves up, I'd get everybody dressed, and I'd be like, all right, we're hitting the streets. And we'd walk down to the Fitzsimmons house, and first we would visit Richard's father and mother, my uncle and Aunt Nan, and we'd have a little snack downstairs in their kitchen. Then we would make our way up to the girls' house, Lorette, Kay, and Ann, and we'd have roll gold pretzels and Coke. And it was the best visit because you never had to say a word when you were at the girls' house. You just had to sit and listen and drink your Coke. So when we would finish there after a few hours, then we would head up to Taylor Avenue to 707 because that's where we would have A&W root beer and vanilla ice cream, and we would sneak into my grandfather's study to find his enormous stash of candy. And those of you who've ever been to my grandfather's study, many of us have, you'll know that it was always abundant with candy. So what I remember most about him is his beautiful smile. Now I'll get emotional. His beautiful smile and his amazing head of hair. And when he didn't have it all vitalised back for court or in the office, and you'd go to his house, it would just be like hanging down in his face. And it was just, I can still remember him opening the door with his robe on and his beautiful lock of hair and just a giant smile. Like always willing and happy to have us there. So what I will remember about him, he's always my grandfather. My mother, I remember my mother saying, when you're older, you'll realize the impact that your grandfather had on the history of Pennsylvania. And we're like, okay, yeah, whatever. He's just Gramps. So now we do, at soon to be 60 years of age. I completely understand his impact on the state of Pennsylvania. So cheers to you, Gramps. We still miss you, and thank you all for being here.
I think I just broke the mic. All right. Now? Yes, all right. So our final speaker is a man that we've heard a lot from today. I'm going to carry the mic over to him because he's been on his feet way too much as an injured person, is Dr. Jeremiah Eagen, the son of the Chief Justice, and really the force behind today's event. So as I introduce you, please everyone give Dr. Eagen a big round of applause.
Thank you very much, everybody. I'll be brief because we're all hungry and want to go drink. But anyway, everything's been wonderful today. It's been a wonderful tribute to my wonderful father. I thank you very much for coming, all of you, for your participation, for your remarks. I guess I'll complete this by telling one joke about my father, right? We had what was in those days a library, but they're now called family rooms. And he used to sit on the back of the library in this dilapidated old velvet blue lounge chair. And he wore this short red velvet smoking jacket, believe it or not. That's when he was Captain, right? Even though he didn't smoke at that time. And he used to watch the Met games, right? He was a great Met fan. And so I just started practice that week. And I think it was a Friday afternoon. And I came in to visit with my father. And he said to me, and I told him what I was doing in a very nice way. And I told him, well, Dad, I had an initial consult from Dr. Frank Reddington, who was our primary care doctor, early in the week. And when I arrived at Mercy Hospital to see the patient had already expired, all right? And then I said I got a second consult from him at the Mercy Hospital, and I went to see the patient. The patient died shortly after I arrived. And so as I was talking, the pager came off, and I took the message, and it said, you have another consult at Mercy Hospital from Dr. Frank Reddington. And my father looked up at me and said, now, he said, this is the Mets game, and Jerry, it's 3 strikes and you're out of town. So obviously, just like my father, he hung around, so did I. But I thought I would tell that joke because my father, in addition to his unbelievable, extraordinary lifetime of work, obviously, also had a good sense of humor. And thank you very much for coming. Now let's eat and drink, right?
Thank you. Yes, please eat and drink. Find space where you can. We do have some of the justices' certificates in the case behind me here in the hall. And then in the front room, you will find some photographs in a case. So please enjoy those as well. Thank you.